Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O, March 22nd, 2023. And we are going to be going through a really cool passage, 2 Kings chapter 5. Kind of a popular passage in a lot of ways. Very cool though. I find this one really interesting. I'm glad we're kind of there at this part. And you could always check out the archives of the devotions at my YouTube channel, Bo Ouellette, Beauouellette. Got a lot of them there now. We've gone through a lot of books of the Bible. If you've been with me since COVID, starting these devotions, you know that we've gone through all of the New Testament books. We did one gospel, then we did all the other books of the New Testament, and then we started in Genesis, and now we're at 2 Kings. So, man, we are moving through the scriptures so much. So let's get into it and see what this chapter 5 is all about. So it says, the king of Aram had a great admiration for Naaman, a commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. This is kind of a neat little start. One of those really interesting little caveats that we get in the scriptures that a lot of times you pass over and you don't really think about it. But this morning, it's good for us just to be reminded that kind of that old, maybe cliche that people say all the time, hey, God's in control. Well, this little section, this little passage right here really tells us that, huh? It says that the Lord had given Aram great victories. Whoa, Aram? Great victories? I mean, look at the back of your study Bibles. When you buy a study Bible, in the back it always has maps. And you could find places. Find Aram, up there by Damascus. You don't see any tribes there. No tribes of Israel up in that neck of the woods. So who are these people? Isn't that interesting? And the Lord gave the Aram great victories. Whoa. It's like, whoa, is God maybe is in control. And maybe he's not asleep at the switch, but maybe all things are done with purpose. This morning, I want to see my dad, my spiritual dad, my father, as one who purposes in my life. He has a purpose for me today. He knows this day, he's seen this day, and there's purpose for me in this day. It's not arbitrary, it's not random. There's purpose in it by my Father. He has something for me today. Man, I love that. I love that idea. God is in control. And it's kind of crazy, but sometimes we think we're in control. But how much control are you really in? Can you control the weather? I don't think the Californians can do that right now, right? I'm a fellow native Californian myself. Didn't have much control of the weather. That's right. We don't have much control, But this is insisting God does. So Aram, not one of the 12 tribes of Israel, not part of the 12 tribes. Remember that, right? We're talking about a commander of the army of Aram, Naaman here. And it says, but though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. Interesting. Leprosy, not a great disease to have, right? I remember reading Philip Yancey's book on leprosy. I think it was called Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. Maybe that was the title, but it dealt with the issue of pain, and in making a point, he talked about the point being that pain is a blessing from the Lord. And we sometimes forget about that. He discusses leprosy throughout that book. And boy, man, what an eye-opener that book is. Really a neat read. Everybody probably should read it just to get a different perspective. Naaman had this leprosy, and at the time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. One day, the girl said to her mistress, "I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." So this is interesting. Naaman's people raid the land of Israel. They pick up a young girl who becomes a maidservant for the house of Naaman. This maidservant speaks to Naaman's wife, saying, "Hey, there's a prophet in Samaria that, man, has done amazing healing, and you really need to go, see him, And so Naaman told the king what the young girl from Israel had said. "Go and visit the prophet," the king told Aram, or the king of Aram told him. "I will send a letter introduction for you to take to the king of Israel." Notice the king says, "Hey, Naaman, go." Man, Naaman says, "Hey, this is the deal. This is what this young girl says. I wonder if this is true. I wonder what Naaman's hopes were like. How much of, what was he hoping in? Like, he must have been kind of pretty excited about this. Have you ever gotten your hopes up where you were just like, man, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is the healing, this is the healing. And then it's not the healing, and then you go through those gyrations of, this is it, no, this is it, no, this is it, no. And then you kind of learn just to kind of be steady flow, right? And hopefully not get so up, right? That's how we are, because we're getting tired of that gyration of getting our hopes up and then being let down. That kind of idea. Well, Naaman, I don't think he ever heard anybody healing leprosy. I mean, that wasn't something that he just heard on a daily basis. So this was amazing to hear. And Naaman said, man, I gotta see this. And it took action for him to get up and to move and to go. And just on the word of a servant girl, a young servant girl. And hey, if you're young out there, remember, God could use you powerfully. God used this young servant girl in the life of this famous commander of the Aramean army. And so don't sell yourself short just because you're young. You could definitely influence people. Where? By pointing them to the person of God. Isn't that cool? Hey, go see that person. Hey, do you know Jesus? Have you heard of Jesus? Man, that kind of thing. You can do that kind of idea. This girl's a great example of the teenager who's in love with God. Hey, you know what? Man, I can point you to the right direction. And that's what we want to be in our life. We want to be people that point people in the right direction. Hey, man, this is what God's word says. It's not about me. It's not what I think. Man, who am I? I mean, what kind of knowledge do I have? But the Bible is God's revelation to human beings. It's something we should look at. God intervening, right? Coming into this world, speaking to us. That's pretty important. That's something that we should look into, at least. And so this young girl does a really cool thing, man. I mean, definitely want to be like her, pointing in the right direction. Michael says the weather is like if we were in Washington State, cold and rainy. Yeah, that's so true. That's how Cali is right now, man. So let's go. It says Naaman told the king what the young girl did. Yep. And the king sends him off with a letter, an official letter from the king. And so Naaman started out, carrying as gifts 750 pounds of silver, 150 pounds of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. The letter to the king of Israel said, with this letter I present my servant Naaman. I want you to heal him of his leprosy. Pretty quick word, right? Nothing too crazy here, just straight and to the point letter. And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes in dismay and said, "This man sends me a leper to heal? Am I God that I can give life and take it away? I can see that he's just trying to pick a fight with me." The king of Israel goes, "What is this? Like, I can't do this. Like, this is not in my wheelhouse. Like, I don't have these gifts." And of course, the kings of the north, remember, if we remember them, they're not really They're not really doing that well spiritually, are they? No, man. They're not ready, for spiritual things. They're not ready to seek the Lord. They're not thinking through things. In my day today, I want to think through things right now so that when I get to work or I get to the store or I do whatever I do in my day, I'm already spiritually ready to go. Does that make sense? So when something out of the ordinary comes my way, I don't tear my clothes, right? I'm not in dismay, right? I don't want to be that. I want to be ready to go. What's going to be the word today? What's going to be the letter that I get today? And am I ready for that letter? Am I prepared, spiritually? The king of Israel was not. And it says, this man sends a leper to heal, for me to heal. Am I God that I can give life and take it away? I can see that he's just trying to pick a fight with me. So he kind of, mocks the letter. Am I God? What kind of letter is this? Do you think I can do these things? Who do you think I am? Again, there's no power in us, but there's power in the Lord. Right? He could have said, "Hey, you know what? I got no power in and of myself, but my God is the living God. He's the creator of the heavens and the earth, and he can do all things." Could have said that, but he doesn't. Instead, he's like, "What? Me? No way. Who am I? I can't do it. He wants to fight me." And then he gets all into this. He wants to brawl. He's trying to pick a fight, this kind of thing. He's trying to mock us, whatever, But his mind's not in the right spot. I want my mind to be in the right spot today. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes in dismay, so some time went by, Elisha hears what's gone on, why the king of Israel is so in a fuss, and he sends him a message. "Why are you so upset? Send Naaman to me, and he will learn that there is a true prophet here in Israel." Hey, he says, what are you doing? Point him to me at least. Don't you know that, man, God's doing an amazing work? Again, the king is aloof. He's just spiritually aloof. His mind is too on the horizontal and not on the vertical, right? Where's your mind today? Is it on just the horizontal, or is it on the vertical? Are you seeing things from a spiritual perspective? Are you spiritually discerning today? Or are you just fleshly discerning? Are you just looking at everything from the earth perspective? Or are you spiritually looking at it from a spiritual sense? Hey, what does God want? What would God say? How is God looking at these things? What is God doing in the world? Am I able to look at the sign of the times and see it from a spiritual perspective? Right? And so, we see that the king gets rebuked by the prophet, right? And so Naaman went to his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message: "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of your leprosy." but Naaman came in angry. Naaman became angry and stalked away. I thought he would certainly come out to meet me, he said. I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Hey, Naaman was expecting a healing a particular way, and it didn't come the way that he thought it was going to come. He thought maybe that the prophet would come out, greet him, shake his hand, give him some proper respect, blah, 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 all that. But instead, this servant came out, right? Came out, a messenger of Elisha. And that really took Naaman back. Naaman was like, wait, hey, I'm the commander, you know? And, you know, do I ever have that attitude of Naaman where I'm just like, oh, hey, I deserve some respect. I can't believe you didn't give me some respect. You know, is that kind of the first thing in, you know, there? Am I struggling with that? You know, is that something that I struggle with? Is that kind of respect? I need people to kind of cater to me, you know? Am I that fragile of a human being? Am I that fragile of a man? You know, where I need, you know, that kind of respect, or else I fall apart. You know, man, can I not be okay in Christ? Can I not be okay in God? Is God enough to know that God loves me? Or do I need people to cater to me? Well, I must say in our hearts, we see a lot of failure there. And we want to be respected. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of giving of respect and receiving of respect. But it can't be everything. It can't be everything. And to Naaman, he was taken back by this. He said, man, I thought this dude was going to wave some kind of hand gyration, do, you know, what the magicians do, you know, kind of, you know, wave something, do some kind of waving. You know, waving seems to be the magician thing, right? I mean, that's what we see is a lot of waving. A little sleight of hand here, a little sleight of hand there, you know, and then boom, bada bing, it's done, right? And that's what he thinks. But it didn't happen. And he goes away bent. But remember, he's told what to do. It's not that he wasn't told by the messenger of Elisha, hey, this is what you need to do. He's told. But it's just not on his terms. It's not how he wants it. You know, it's, you know, it's a bummer, right? There's a lot of things to think about there that if we are like Naaman, you know, do we act, you know, very similar in similar ways to him, you know? So he's told what to do, but he doesn't do it, right? He's told how he can be healed, but he doesn't do it. Right? He's too wrapped up in his, you know, I wasn't really honored well. You know, it really wasn't what I expected. You know, maybe God's going to do something different than what you expect. You know, maybe God's going to work in a different way than what you think. You know, but you're told what to do, but you know what? You don't want to do it because it's not in your way. It's not in my way. It's not in the way that we thought. And so it's a bummer, you know, it's a drag, you know, because it's not what we were expecting. We don't feel like we're being honored, you know, we're being respected. Interesting, right? Boy, we can have some pretty rough hearts. And we're told exactly what to do. That's what Naaman's been told. It says, aren't the rivers of Damascus, Abana, and the Pharpar better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed? So Naaman turned and went away in rage. He says, man, I got better rivers back home. Man, what's the whole deal with this? Bathe in this muddy Jordan? You know, what's up with that? You know, that's not a good river. I got much better rivers. I could have just done it there. Again, Naaman's all tweaked, right? He's been told what to do to be healed, everything, but it's not in his way, right? And he feels disrespected, not honored, So he gets mad. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, go and wash and be cured." He says, "Man, dude, you would do something if he said go climb Mount Everest, you'd go do it, man. You charge it. You do, so why not just go, go in that muddy river over there, just go do it. Just go walk in there." And Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him, and his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. Oh, man. Awesome. God's mercy in whose life? And a guy from a part of the Aramean army. Isn't that radical? Did Jesus heal people that was part of an army? Interesting? Yep. Very interesting, huh? And here we see Jesus doing very similar, or later on doing very similar acts, right? Showing the people that there truly is a prophet among them. There truly is a man of God that is among them. But not just a man of God, right? Jesus was pointing them to who he was, God in human flesh. Naaman hears from his cronies, his fellow soldiers, right? His officers. And I'm glad that Naaman listened to them. Sometimes we won't listen to people, but finally we'll listen to our peers. Maybe they'll tell us something and we'll finally pay attention, And Naaman finally paid attention. He said, "Okay, man, I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go jump in the muddy, this really sad looking river." And lo and behold, he's all healed and he's all good and ready to go. It's amazing the act of mercy of God on Naaman. It really is. And it shows that God's in the lives of different people. Maybe you'd be surprised who God's working on today. You might not have thought God's working in their life, but God is working in their life. And maybe you don't know that God's working in that country, but God's really working in that country. You got to be careful, and I got to be careful of that kind of idea that God is with us alone. Oh, yeah? Think again, right? Right? God worked in the lives of the Aram people, and specifically the commander of the army, right? Naaman. So Naaman and his entire party went back to find the man of God. They stood before him, and Naaman said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the world except in Israel. No one can cleanse leprosy. So please accept a gift from your servant." But Elisha replied, "No way. I'm not going to accept any gifts." And though Naaman urged him to take the gift, Elisha refused. And I love this. Elisha says, "No, man. I don't need your money. This is not about, a profit for hire type of thing." Now, nothing's wrong for someone to be paid for their labor in Christ and their spiritual labor. That's not what this is referring to. But when it came to Naaman being someone who is a outsider of the commonwealth of Israel, being healed by the prophet of the people of Israel, it wasn't for money. It wasn't for some kind of, Israel-Aram relationship. Elisha said, "No way. This is something God does. That's it." And Naaman realizes that it's the work of the Lord. And I love that, as he, Elisha certainly wants Naaman to glorify God in the healing and not have it be like, "Oh, well, he healed me, now I got to pay him." Because that's what I do with the other gods. I just pay their magicians and their prophets. But Elisha's different. He says, "No. Sometimes just serve the Lord, right? Just serve God." And, before I ever got paid to be in the ministry, someone gave me a paycheck, that kind of thing, to administer in the church, I did what I do now. I served in the church. I did Bible studies, I served, I got there early, I made things, I cleaned stuff, I just did what I always do, even to this day. Just the same stuff. Sure, it's grown and the ministry's grown, but the same things I'm doing that I did even before. Yeah, we don't want to be, a hireling. We don't want to do things just because we get paid to do them, in our spiritual walk, right? A hireling was someone that Jesus talked about, right? That someone's really not in it with the heart, but they're in it for the cash, right? For the money, for the payoff. And instead of just doing it, just to do it because the Lord's told you to do it. So Elisha says to Naaman, no gift. But Naaman said, all right, but please allow me to load 2 of my mules with earth from this place, and I will take it back home with me. From now on, I will never again offer burnt offerings of sacrifice to any other god except the Lord. However, may the Lord pardon me of this one thing. When my master, the king, goes to the temple of the god Rimmon to worship there and leans on my arm, may the Lord pardon me when I bow too. Go in peace, Elijah said, so Naaman started home again. What an interesting section this is. Naaman says to Elisha, hey man, you know what? I want to take some of this earth with me. I want to worship in this land, so to speak, on this soil, your God. And it's a real beautiful kind of, I think, act of Naaman here. And Naaman's heart is one of going, hey, you know what? The king's going to go in and he's going to bow to this God, right? Rimmon. And he's going to worship this false god. And I'm always with him, and I have my hand on him. And he leans on my arm. And I bow to help him and, assist him and everything like that. But can I be pardoned for that? I don't want you to think that I'm worshiping this God. I'm just doing my job. And it's interesting. Elisha doesn't say, man, leave the job. It's really interesting, right? Elisha could have said, hey, bro, you need to serve the Lord hardcore. You got to leave that job. Get out of there, But what does Elisha say? Go in peace. Shalom. Wow. Right? Interesting. Jesus never says to the Roman centurion, right? Stop doing what you're doing at Rome. Very interesting, right? Go in peace. Shalom. Grow in your walk with God. God's going to show you what you need to do and when you need to do it. You need to just keep serving, worshiping Him. Have Him on your mind. He'll guide you. You don't need someone like me telling you, get out of there. Don't do that. No, you seek the Lord. What is God telling you? Very interesting, right? Elisha says, go, shalom. And Naaman goes. So you think that's the end of the story, the end, period, we're done. But then we get an insight into Gehazi, right? The servant of Elisha. Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said to himself, my master should not have let this Aramean get away without accepting his gifts. As surely as the Lord lives, I will chase him and get something from him. So Gehazi sent off after Naaman. Hey, man, these guys are enemies, man. What are we doing, man? We got to get some gifts. I mean, come on. And then Naaman saw Gehazi running after him because Gehazi was quick, man. He was a sprinter. And he climbed down from his chariot and went to meet him. Or he wasn't running. He was on his chariot. And he climbs down to meet him. And is everything all right? Naaman asked. And yes, Gehazi said. Or maybe Gehazi was running, right? And the king, Naaman, was in the chariot. And Gehazi said, but my master has sent me to tell you, 2 young prophets from the hill country of Ephraim have just arrived. He would like 75 pounds of silver and 2 sets of clothing to give them. By all means, take twice as much silver However, Naaman insisted. He gave him 2 sets of clothing, tied up the money in 2 bags, and sent 2 of his servants to carry the gifts for Gehazi. But when they arrived at the citadel, Gehazi took the gifts from the servants and sent the men back, and he went and hid the gifts inside the house. So it seems a little fishy what Gehazi's doing. It seems like he's kind of going, you know what, I'm kind of going to devise a little scheme here to be able to get this Aramean, this enemy's money. I mean, let's face it, these guys are horrible. I mean, and when people are horrible, you know, what we do is we take their stuff. You know, is that what we do? No. Right? We are to love our enemies. Maybe that's what Elisha's doing. Maybe Elisha is already cued in to the idea of the great commandment to love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And who's your neighbor? Even the Samaritan, right? Even the one who's not liked, right? And so Gehazi, though, man, he's the dude who's in the flesh. He's seeing everything horizontally. Dude, he's going to get his, and he knows it is a financial score, you know. And so, hey, why not, you know, take advantage of this? So he does it, and he goes to Elisha. And where have you been, Gehazi? And he says, I haven't been anywhere. But Elisha asked him, don't you realize that I was there in spirit when Naaman stepped down from his chariot to meet you? Is this the time to receive money and clothing, olive groves and vineyards, sheep and cattle and male and female servants? Because you have done this, you and your descendants will suffer from Naaman's leprosy forever. When Gehazi left the room, he was covered with leprosy. His skin was as white as snow. Wow. Love what Elisha says. Hey, is this the time? Maybe it's not the time. It's not the time, man. Elisha says, you shouldn't have done this. You know, you deceived, you lied, you didn't love your enemies. That's not the time we're in, man. Man, we're spiritual warriors, right? We have to think spiritually, not so fleshly. So let's get in it and get on it kind of thing. Let's gear up. Let's put on the armor of God. Let's be prepared. That kind of thing, you know? Get our minds, gird up the loins of your mind, Peter said, right? Get ready. Get your mind ready, right? You know, and that's it. Spiritually be ready. And he rebukes Gehazi. So today, may we be spiritually ready for whatever letter, whatever thing that comes our way, that we're able to throughout the day be ready for anything spiritually so that we can respond in the proper way. And what's the proper way? Certainly to love, you know. So cool Devo, fun chapter, a lot of neat things. Again, God's mercy on people that aren't of Israel. Very interesting. Not only with Jesus, but we see it threaded throughout the Old Testament. God's mercy, loving the enemies. So, hey, God bless you all. And thanks for joining me on the devotion today, okay? Bye-bye.